We're here with Chris Humphrey from Fellinis in Charlottesville, Virginia. And Chris, would you tell us a little bit about your restaurant and what you're cooking for us tonight?
Sure. Yeah, so Fellinis is an Italian restaurant on the downtown mall, well, a block off the downtown mall. We use as much local product as possible, so it's not super traditional in the sense of, a red sauce sort of restaurant. It's more modern Italian because we will use whatever local ingredients come into the kitchen. So I think we're unique in that manner a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And what are you cooking for us tonight?
I'm going to make ragu bolognese.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, at least our version of it.
Okay.
One of the best descriptions I've heard is if you ask 100 Italian grandmothers how to make bolognese, you'll get 102 different answers. So this is our version of it.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, show us how we do it.
Okay, so pot, medium heat. You don't want it too hot. I don't like to brown the meat a whole lot. I think it distracts from the flavor of the actual meat a little. Just vegetable oil. And in this case, we're going to use, sorry, I need a knife. We're going to use 1 pound of pork, ground pork, and 1 pound of ground beef. It's a lot of different variations. People use bacon and pancetta and ham and all sorts of different things, but I think it takes away from the overall flavor at the end of the day of the actual meat. Sorry. So the thing to remember about bolognese is a lot of people think it's a tomato sauce with meat, but it's actually the exact opposite. It's a meat sauce with tomato and the addition of dairy, but you'd want the meat to be the main component of the final product. I could have done this an easier way too. All right, so the beef and pork is in, and at this point, I add the vegetables immediately. So you've got chopped onions there, carrots, celery. And we were discussing earlier about people having different levels of knife skills. They have this stuff chopped up in the grocery store. Don't be afraid to buy it, because I have. So salt and pepper. Generally, this is the only addition of salt that I add. The tomatoes have some salt, so I don't add a whole lot more. And I'll figure out the stove. So now, just going to let the meat cook. You want to keep stirring it, chopping it up. It's important that the meat's really, really, really fine, because it's a sauce, right? We don't want big chunks of meat. We want the meat to be the sauce. That's really important. And this takes a little while. This is going to take about 10 minutes. All right, so the meat is, and I won't say brown because we don't really brown the meat, but it's pretty much done cooking at this point. It's cooked through, vegetables are tender. So, now the wine. Some people say just red wine, some people say white wine, some people say no wine. I say all the wine, just put all of it in. So we're going to do about a cup of each. So white and a red. Anything works, whatever you're drinking. I think the only thing to avoid would be like a super oaky, buttery, like Chardonnay. Not so good. But other than that, it's fine. So that's going to reduce for just a couple of minutes. 5-10 minutes, depends on your stove. You want to reduce it by about half. So Depends on how hot it is, how big your pot is, how much evaporation. Um, or don't let it reduce. It doesn't matter. This thing's gonna cook for an hour and a half. So um, I like to let it burn off a little bit, but it's not gonna be the end of the world if it doesn't. All right, so we're gonna just pretend that it's reduced enough. And then heavy cream. A lot of recipes call for milk. A lot of recipes call for less tomato. Then we're gonna add, I like the feel of the heavy cream. I think it makes more silkier sauce. So that's what I use. You can use milk, you can use half and half, whatever, but this is my preference. All right, so now that's gotta reduce a little bit. The cream's gonna mellow out the wine a little bit, smooth it out. Won't be as, you don't want that harsh wine flavor. And keep messing with it. Keep breaking down the meat a little bit. As the meat cooks, it's going to break down a little more, but you can't really stir it too much as far as I'm concerned. Like, just keep it going. All right, that's going on. I'm going to crush tomatoes. All right, so we got whole peeled tomatoes. You could probably use the canned crushed tomatoes if you wanted, but texturally, I think the whole peeled tomatoes are better. You get a small chunk, a big chunk. It's a little different. Like, that's what makes food interesting, right? Like, if everything's exactly the same, it's kind of boring. But if you got a little different texture in every bite, it kind of makes you want to go back and eat a little more. Plus, I think most people have one of these big cans sitting in the cabinet somewhere. They're not quite sure how long it's been there or what to do with it, so make sauce with it. So crush them up by hand. Try to be careful because I always make a mess. Tomato juice is on the ceiling. It's a disaster. And they don't have to be super, super fine either. This, again, is going to cook for about an hour and a half, so they're going to keep breaking down. They're going to get soft. And so, something like that. Like, a few chunks are good. So, put those in. I think I need a bigger pot. And then it's a little bit of just basic tomato sauce. And that is the entire process. So that's all the hands-on work that you have to do. From this point, it's reducing the heat, let it simmer for about an hour, hour and a half. Keep stirring it every chance you get. You don't have to constantly stir it. But every time you go back to the kitchen for another glass of wine, give it a stir. And it'll be fine. And you want it to reduce down pretty thick. Like, it's going to be pretty, and I have a finished one I'll show you in a minute, but I don't put any garlic. There's no herbs. There's very little, trying to not to distract from the flavor of the meat. That's the most important part of the entire process as far as I'm concerned. So that's all we got till we cook pasta. All right, so pasta, just going to cook the pasta. Big pot of boiling water, salted, heavily salted. Whatever pasta you like. I found bucatini, so that's what I'm going to use today. You don't want to use like an angel hair or something super fine, but rigatoni, bucatini, fettuccine would work. At the restaurant, we make homemade pasta. So it's we make a tagliatelle, which is a little thicker than a fettuccine noodle. But whatever you have and you like is what you should eat. It doesn't really matter that much. So we're just going to cook the pasta al dente. It's going to cook for about 8-9 minutes. And then when it's done, I'm going to scoop it directly from the water into the ragu, toss it, and then it's ready to eat. We'll add some cheese and herbs, and dinner's ready. All right, pasta's cooked. The only way to really tell if the pasta's cooked is to taste it, okay? You want a little bit of chew, a little texture. Like, you don't want it to stick in your teeth, but you want it to bounce back a little bit, So That's exactly what that is. So the pasta's perfect. This is still simmering. This has at least another hour to go. I'm going to zoom in and check out the difference. I'll show you the difference of what this looks like at this point. And then about an hour, hour and a half later, you end up with this. So almost all the liquid's completely evaporated. But, I mean, you want a little bit still. So at this point, take the pasta directly from the pot into the sauce so you don't lose the starch. You can rinse it if you need to eat it, you want to eat it a little later. You can rinse it and cool it down. It'll be fine. But this right here will definitely help the sauce stick to it a little bit. And also, this makes a lot of sauce. So, this is going to feed 6 to 8 people. Or like me and 2 of my friends. Depends. But if you're only feeding a couple of people, the sauce freezes great. So just take half of it out, cool it down, put it in a container, pop it in the freezer, pull it out when you're ready, and then all you got to do is cook some noodles and you got pasta. Get all of those out of there. Okay. So, just going to toss it. All right. That's about there. So, just so you can get a look at it, that's what you end up with. And then dish a little up. A lot of the sauce is going to tend to sink to the bottom, so dig from the bottom. You want the sauce. All right, so pasta, gotta have cheese. This is Grana Padano, which is a Parmesan-style cheese, just from a different region. Use good cheese, though. Don't skimp on the cheese. You got great pork, great beef. Spend all this time, the last thing you want is a little green can of cheese. So spend a little bit extra money, get the good cheese. Put as much or as little as you like. And then, just happen to be lucky enough to have herbs. If you have some, great. If you don't have any, fine. It's not the end of the world if you don't. But a little basil, parsley. No need for a knife. Big chunks are fine. And a little parsley. There you go. That's it. Pasta Bolognese. All right.
Oh, I'm excited to try this.
It's the
Beautiful.
bucatini can be hard to twirl.
Delicious. And also a recipe that someone who does not like to cook can cook. Yes, yes, it is very approachable.
It is.
And yeah, I can definitely do that. You've inspired me.
Fantastic. Just takes a little time.
Yeah, I'm excited to try it.
Great.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Chris. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it.